Let me start from the introduction part. As was noted, I'm Nino Terzadze. I represent a regional organization, CENN, Caucasus Environment NGO Network. That is a regional development organization that is working in the South Caucasus region. We're working in Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. We are working to protect the environment by fostering sustainable development and green growth in the region. The organization was founded in 1998. We specialize in a number of areas and are working in a couple of directions, including climate change, sustainable management of resources, promotion of inclusive and green growth, fostering democracy and good governance, building climate resilient communities, empowering women and girls and vulnerable communities to support their involvement in decision-making process. The organization has more than 60 full-time staff members and a network of volunteers along the region. I'm project manager at CENN. I have experience of managing different donor-funded projects, multilateral or bilateral donors-funded projects in different sectors, including land resources management, forest resources management. I have been working a couple of years on waste management related issues. Currently, I'm managing EU-funded project on climate change that aims to strengthen the role of CSOs in tackling climate change through establishing participation mechanisms. We have developed multi-stakeholder regional groups and a national platform on climate change and are building and facilitating cooperation between state and non-state actors for supporting inclusive policy development and implementation. Let me share the screen and start from introduction of our agenda. From this, after this introduction session, we will have a brief interactive session via using Mentimeter platform that will give us the ideal sectors the participants represent, and we will have a clear picture of the sectors. Either this will be civil society, academia, or government or private sector. After analyzing the results of our interactive session, again, we will have small but more important, I guess, interactive session on getting information from you, from participants, about the issues you would like to learn about the EU Green Deal, the topics you are interested more with regard to EU Green Deal. And after this session, we will move to the context of the development of the Green Deal. That will be followed by the overview of the general overview of the Green Deal itself. Later, we will touch the sectors of the economy that have some kind of implications as a result of Green Deal. We will also talk briefly about the benefits of the Green Deal. And we will close the webinar by presenting the ways CSOs could be involved in the implementation of the European Green Deal, and in between the benefits, discussing benefits and involvement opportunities, we will have again interactive session that will also allow you to be more actively involved in the webinar. And as what was noted about by Simon, you can post your questions in a Q&A section, and later, after the kind of my presentation, we will be able to discuss your feedback, and I will do my best to provide the answers on the questions you will raise in your questions. So now I would like you to enter the Mentimeters platform. I guess in the Q&A section will appear the link. Actually, the link is already presented on the slide. And on the Mentimeter, you can choose the sector you work or represent. So this will give us the idea who are our kind of audience, and let's have about 5 minutes maximum to answer all this question, and then we will have opportunity to see the results. I will share the screen to share the results in a live mode. I guess the link is already shared with you.
I shared the link. Yes, I shared
Okay,
the link in the chat.
see.
Yeah.
I will now share the results. So far we have 4 results. Let's wait a couple of minutes. We have about 12 participants, and let's wait for others. So far we have only 5 answers on our question. Let's wait a couple of minutes and then move to.
So just to say, we have 13 attendees. So this is half, more or less.
Okay. So as we see from the results, as was expected, actually the majority of our audience are representatives of civil society, and I'm happy to see that the one member is also from the private sector, since the involvement of private sector in the implementation of the Green Deal is very important. So I'm happy to see representatives from the private sector among our audience. Now let's move to the second interactive session. And during this session, we will have kind of more feedback for you. We will need more involvement because this is one of the important sessions, at least for me, because you will have the opportunity to elaborate on what would you like to learn about the European Green Deal. And I hope the webinar will help you to get this information, or can help you to find the ways to learn more about the Green Deal, and furthermore increase your interest towards Green Deal. And since this question needs more kind of time, let's have 5-7 minutes for answering this question.
The link is in the chat again, so if I could ask everyone to use that Mentimeter link, the second one.
Thank you, Monica, and I will share again Mentimeter, but the second one. So you are free to provide your answers based on your interest, the topics you are interested in, or so you are not limited in number of kind of answers or the words, so you can type as much as you like. Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
I think you can probably work on this basis, because again, it's half of the attendees who seem to have engaged with this Mentimeter as well. So
Okay, we can go through the issues and briefly touch upon them. So one of the important things, will be why is it relevant to countries outside the EU? So we can discuss this issue during our webinar, development of the regions and communities. I guess what are the future vision for the development based on the European Green Deal. This will be discussed. So regarding how local CSOs can deliver and adjust their programming based on the EU Green Deal, I guess the best will be to get as much as possible information about the Green Deal, what are the vision, what are the thematic, and try to incorporate those directions in our programming, since this is the future of the not only of the Europe but the whole world in terms of sustainable green growth. How to use it for SMEs? That's quite important. Questions, since most of the topics that are touched in Green Deal concern the economy, different sectors, and finally private sector. The enterprises of different size are the drivers, are those who should implement all these requirements, and we will talk about this. The same about the involvement of CSOs and the private sector in the process, and we will talk about this. What does it mean for a CSO? I guess the Green Deal, this should be kind of roadmap as a future development, as a vision. Linkages with social services like healthcare, social protection, education. We will talk about this. Cross-cutting social services, community level activities. In the section we will talk about the ways of involvement CSOs in the implementation of the Green Deal. We will talk about ways of involvement of CBOs, CSOs at community level that indeed includes the activities at community level. Not sure what does it mean, methodologies, data and reporting standards, but later we can discuss this in a Q&A session. And the last comment, apart from the general info, I would like to learn about European Green Deal related EU approaches towards countries, namely Azerbaijan. What is the satisfying and dissatisfying about approach towards it? Active and skilled. Yeah, since we as Azerbaijan and other South Caucasus countries are not part of the European Union, these requirements of the European Green Deal are not kind of mandatory for us, but we should go in this direction and let's see what are the opportunities and what kind of skills and activities do we need to be involved in the supporting implementation of the European Green Deal. Thank you for your active participation in the Mentimeter interactive session. And now let's move to our presentation, and let me in the first section briefly talk about the context for the development of the European Green Deal. As all of you know, climate change and environmental degradation that are existential threats to the whole world, including Europe, they require urgent and decisive actions. The atmosphere is warming and the climate is changing with each year, and many species on the planet are at risk of being lost. Forests and oceans are being polluted and destroyed. And the latest data from leading scientists show unprecedented changes in the world's climate. According to the latest report developed by the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, so-called IPCC, that is developing comprehensive assessment reports about the state of scientific, technical, and socio-economical knowledge on climate change, its impacts and future risks related to climate change. Based on their latest report, global warming is increasing, and in some cases they are causing irreversible changes to rainfall patterns, increases of oceans and sea levels, and increase of frequency and intensity of winds in all regions of the world, including European Union. And for Europe, the report predicts an increase in the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, including heat waves, and they warn that 2-degree increase in temperature will have critical effect on nature and people. Higher temperatures and intensified weather events will also result in huge cost for the economies of the European Union and hamper the country's ability to produce food. However, according to the scientists, human action can change the course of the development of these events, and rapid and large-scale reductions in greenhouse gas emissions and reaching net zero CO2 emissions have the potential to limit climate change and its effects. So to overcome the challenges caused by the climate change and environmental degradation and mitigate the causes of this phenomena, Europe needed a new growth strategy that will support the transformation of the European Union into a resource-efficient and competitive economy where there are no net emissions of GHG gases. The European Green Deal that was approved in 2020 is a set of policy initiatives by the European Commission that is all-embarrassing, concerns different sectors of economy, and that makes to make the European Union climate neutral by 2050. The European Green Deal, that is a new strategy and a vision of economy, aims to ensure that by 2050, economic growth will be decoupled from the natural resource use, and no person or place, geographical location, or any country will be left behind of this process. In December 2019, the European Commission has introduced the European Green Deal, ambitious policy package that intended to make European Union's economy environmentally sustainable. It's essentially a new vision of growth strategy that aims to enable the European Union to attain climate neutrality by 2050. In other words, a zero carbon footprint that will be achieved by balancing the amount of CO2 that is released as a result of different activities should be removed from atmosphere or fixed by plants. The goal is to reach climate neutrality by 2050 and to turn the transition into an economic and industrial opportunity for Europe. The deal is made up of a wide variety of policy measures and subsidies aimed to cut pollution while increasing research and investments in innovations and environmentally friendly technologies. The main objective is for the EU to eliminate or offset its GHG emissions by 2050 in line with global efforts to limit global warming to 1.5 degree above pre-industrial averages. This is based on a set of interconnected goals covering almost every sector of economy and almost the whole society. This includes decoupling economic growth and resource consumption by moving into a circular economy that is alternative to linear economy that we now use, and that will increase recycling and reduce waste, aims at preventing biodiversity loss, deforestation, developing and promoting climate smart agriculture, and supporting promotion of more sustainable mobility. The deal aims to achieve three main goals. The first is it focuses on achieving net zero emissions by proposing specific strategies that can help limit emissions across all sectors. But the main focus is on energy, since it makes up more than 75% of total European Union's greenhouse gas emissions. The objective is to increase the share of renewable energy in the European Union's energy generation mix. Second, it plans to decouple growth from resource exploitation and use. While reductions in emissions have been achieved in the last decade, Europe remains one of the major contributors to resource consumption in the world. Described as a generation-defining task, achieving this objective will not only require a boost in technological advancement, but also it needs kind of rethinking and changing the whole lifestyle and the habits of people and communities and the societies. So big transformation will be needed. The third is the need to foster an inclusive green transition and to leave no one behind. supported through the just transition mechanism, which will provide financial resources to elevate the socio-economic impacts of this transition. So what has been achieved so far? What are the main kind of milestones that could be separately mentioned with regard to European Green Deal? These are the European Climate Law, which has made the EU's 55% emissions reduction targets kind of legally binding for member states by 2030. The European Union's renovation wave, which considers the renovation of about 200 million buildings by 2050 to increase the environmental performance of those buildings while generating kind of savings for the households at the same time. Should be noted separately European Union's Code of Conduct on Responsible Food Business and Marketing Practices, since food industry is a great contributor in GHG emissions, and this code was signed by 65 organizations to increase the availability and affordability of healthy and sustainable food options. The EU Action Plan towards zero pollution for air, water, and soil, which aims to reduce that due to the air pollution by 55%, plastic litter in the sea by 50%, and residual municipal waste by 50%, among other changes by 2030. And finally, strategy on adaptation and climate change, the objective of which is to support the adaptive capacity of the European Union and minimize the vulnerability to climate change and minimize the negative impacts of climate change. It's important to highlight those sectors that are touched upon the Green Deal. For them, just a minute. The European Green Deal covers all sections of the economy. As you see on the slide, almost all key sectors like transport, energy, agriculture, buildings sector, and different industries are part of Green Deal. It includes four main components. So energy, as was told, is kind of key for the Green Deal, the supply of clean, safe, and affordable energy, buildings, construction sector, construction and of renovation of the buildings, taking into consideration the energy efficiency issue. Mobility is very important to accelerate the transition to sustainable smart mobile systems and reduce use of motorized transport, and food, creating a fair, healthy and environmentally friendly food systems from the considering the whole chain, whole production chain of food from farm to fork. The main concepts behind the European Green Deal are as follows. Climate ambition and proposal to be brought about by reducing emissions. As was already mentioned a couple of times, the European Union aims to be climate neutral by 2050 and have adopted policies on a wide variety to make this possible. The objective of climate neutrality is at the core of the European Green Deal, and it's becoming an ambition shared by countries, cities, and communities across Europe. It's clear that it can only be met if all actors of societies, all sectors, all stakeholders, businesses and individuals are involved in the processes, play their role in ensuring a positive transformation. And it includes all sectors of economy and changing the daily lifestyle. Economic growth is compatible with reducing GHG emissions. In fact, the European Union has already opportunity to prove that, as the European Commission's website point out, the EU cut its emissions by 23% between 1990 and 2016, while during the same period, the economic growth was about 53% over the same period. Starting from this idea, the European Commission proposes to further cut GHG emissions from the initially agreed 40% to at least 50 or, if possible, 55 below 1990 level by 2030. This proposal will require instruments such as the emissions trading system or the directives related to the changes in land use. The production and the use of the energy accounted for more than 75% of the GHG emissions in Europe in 2021. And decarbonizing the EU's energy system is therefore critical to reach the EU's 2030 climate objectives and the long-term strategy in terms of achieving neutrality by 2050. However, the successful transition to renewable energy sources cannot be achieved with a top-down approach, and there must be approval of all society, which can only be achieved by making the transition just and by involving all stakeholders in the process. The climate ambition is unachievable if no action is taken regarding the current energy model. Thus, this action will focus on 5 key elements: tapping into renewable energy sources with a special focus on wind power, phasing out of coal as a resource for energy production, use of renewable gases such as biogas or hydrogen. The priority should be made on energy efficiency and developing smart infrastructures and solutions such as carbon capture or storage, and this will allow activities such as steel or cement production to reduce their emissions. Very important is emphasis on circular economy, and should be noted that only 12% of secondary materials and resources were brought back into the economy of the EU, according to the Executive Vice President for the European Green Deal in March 2020. And here comes the concept of circular economy that is very important, as the circular economy is the alternative to the linear economy that is based on the extraction, so-called take, produce and dispose. While circular economy, on the contrary, keeps materials, products and services in circulation for as long as possible. The EU's transition to a circular economy will reduce pressure on natural resources and will create sustainable growth, and at the same time this will enable to create new employment opportunities. Circular economy presents an opportunity to achieve the EU's climate neutrality target and to stop biodiversity loss. The involvement of local governments, small or medium-sized enterprises has the potential to considerably increase the wide introduction of circular economy approaches, and this will benefit citizens across the Europe as well as their local economies. Adopting of this paradigm will allow a sustainable product policy to be driven that will facilitate the reduction and reuse of materials prior to their recycling, products to be redesigned to be more durable and simpler to repair. Very important will be making emphasis on design for environment, since this is kind of starting point when we are talking about the circular economy. The volume of waste will be reduced. Jobs, new kind of green jobs will be generated. And incentives will be given to digitalizing the economy. Should be noted separately the energy efficiency and sustainable building and topic related to this issue. With energy use in buildings accounting for around 40% of total energy use in Europe, there is extreme need to make buildings more energy efficient. In response to that, as 85% of the European buildings were built before 2000, and typically they are not so kind of energy efficient, and the EU launched its renovation wave strategy and action plan in 2020. All these existing buildings, as was noted, more than 2 million across the Europe, they are all functional. People are living or they are working in them, and involvement of citizens in this process is very important and essential. The housing stock of member states is characterized by its age and lack of renovation. The circumstances means that buildings are not very efficient from an energy point of view, which is a factor hampering solutions for issues such as energy poverty. Therefore, and as part of a sustainable economy, the EU will drive a renovation plan of public and private buildings that will result in new jobs, and at the same time this will be kind of implementation of circular economy policies and principles in the construction sector. Separately should be noted sustainable mobility, transforming the way society we move around. Transport is one of the main sources of GHG emissions. It represents around 25% of the EU's total GHG emissions, and urban mobility has been selected as a key focus area for the European Green Deal. For that purpose, the Commission published the European Urban Mobility Framework in 2021, proposing measures and initiatives for cities to meet the challenges relating to making their mobility more sustainable, making emphasis on improving public transportation, and making the whole system more kind of green. In order to bring about this transformation, users will have to be provided with different options to encourage them to change their travel and mobility habits, and usual means they use for travel to more sustainable ones. There is no doubt that technology in the form of automation, connectivity, and the development of solutions such as mobility as a service will be the key. As was noted, food production and food sector and sustainability of food chain is a backbone of the deal. Food plays a decisive role in the level of society. The food sector accounts for nearly 1/3 of global GHG emissions, consumes large amounts of natural resources. It causes loss of biodiversity and does not allow fair economic returns and livelihoods for all actors, and particularly for primarily producers. The European Farm to Fork strategy seeks to put the food system on a sustainable path. New technologies and scientific discoveries combined with increased public awareness and demand for sustainable food will benefit all stakeholders. To succeed on this path, we need a thorough understanding of what drives the stakeholders in the food system towards change. Therefore, the European Green Deal will propose reducing the use of pesticides, fertilizers, and antibiotics, and thus, apart from increasing human well-being, animals' welfare standards will also be improved. Thanks to this type of policies, showcasing locally sourced products, the rural environment will be maintained, and this will also have positive effects on biodiversity. Fighting against food waste will be another kind of key front lines in this action. After all, we should know that each kilo of food produced releases about 4.5 kilos CSO emissions in the atmosphere. And moreover, the implementation of the circular economy in the food distribution chain will allow waste to be reduced and the packaging and the conserving of the products to be improved. So circular economy is kind of key topic that will support meeting the objective of the Green Deal through introducing its approaches in different sectors. Very important is biodiversity and ecosystems preservation. They, as all of us know, they provide us with food, health, medicines, they provide recreational resources, and they kind of contribute to the well-being. They filter our air, water, help keep the climate in balance, convert waste back into resources, they fertilize crops and much more. So the preservation of biodiversity is key. In 2020, the EU launched its new biodiversity strategy, aiming to make 30% of Europe protected areas and restore the degraded ecosystems, land and sea ecosystems across the whole Europe. One key aspect to succeed with this ambition is for citizens to gain increased knowledge and skills in the preservation and restoring of biodiversity. The natural environment provides numerous essential resources on a daily basis. In fact, half of the global GDP depends on nature to a great extent, according to a report published by the World Economic Forum in January 2020. Protecting this natural capital, including new territories within the Nature 2000 network or restoring damaged ecosystems, is fundamental to protect ecosystems. In this regard, the European Union's agreement will place a special emphasis on restoring and conserving forests, which are essential to capture carbon from atmosphere, and protecting the oceans, which need to be used to meet part of the demand for human resources on a planet. That will be around 10 billion inhabitants by 2050. Pollution harms human health and natural environment and is the largest natural cause of multiple mental and physical diseases or premature deaths, and especially among children, people with certain medical conditions, and the elderly. Therefore, the European Youth Action Plan towards zero pollution for air, water, and soil sets out ambitious of reducing the negative health impacts, plastic waste, use of chemical pesticides, and much more as we move towards a Europe without pollution. To support that work, it is essential to involve the citizens in this process. Implementing the farm-to-fork strategy will help to limit the impact of some production practices on the environment, natural environment. Therefore, it is also a need to address air quality. For example, according to European Society of Cardiology, estimates air pollution causes nearly 800,000 premature deaths every year in Europe. Therefore, this deal proposes a review of the current legislation on the air quality. The measure will involve tightening up the emission limits to bring them into the line with the recommendations of the World Health Organization, reducing the use of hazardous chemical substances and replacing them with more safe and more sustainable alternatives will also be particularly important. To achieve the ambition set by the European Green Deal, there are significant investment needed. The Commission has estimated that achieving the current 2030 climate and energy targets will require about 260 billion of additional annual investments, about 1.5% of 2080 GDP. This flow of investments will need to be sustained over time. The size of the investment challenge require mobilizing both the public and the private sector to enable kind of mobilizing these financial resources. The Commission will present a sustainable Europe investment plan to help meet the additional funding that are needed. The Commission will also work with the European Investment Bank Group, national banks or institutions, as well as other international financial institutions in this regard. And also should be noted that very important is the national budgets and some kind of changes in the budgets to meet these targets. New technologies, sustainable solutions, and innovations are critical to achieve the objectives of the European Green Deal. Very important is to have the clear picture what kind of benefits will be as a result of implementing Green Deal and achieving the objectives that are set by the Green Deal. And on the slide, you see the main benefits of the Green Deal. These are fresh air, clean water, healthy soil and biodiversity, healthy and affordable food, renovated and energy efficient buildings, more public transport, cleaner energy, and clean technological innovations, longer lasting products that can be repaired, reused or recycled, future-proof jobs, new green jobs, skills trainings for the transitions. And all these, just to combine, will contribute to the well-being of the society. So, as you see from the presentation, this Green Deal is quite comprehensive document that is kind of more vision, kind of roadmap where the Europe should kind of travel, what is the vision, the direction where they are moving. But a lot of bylaws, strategies, documents are needed at country level to support the implementation of this document in real life. And of course, the involvement of civil society and private sector in implementation of this document is very important. And in my last section, I will talk about two main ways for CSOs or active citizens to be involved in the process. But meantime, let me share with you the Mentimeter link again to get your vision. What do you think? What are the opportunities for CSOs to be involved in the processes? And after this, I will present you two main platforms that will support CSOs to be involved in the processes. Let me move on to the Mentimeter. I guess the link is already shared with you.
Yes, Nino, the link is already there for the last of the Mentimeters in the chat.
Thank you so much. I will now, and let's take about, I don't know, 5 minutes, and I would be happy to have your involvement in terms of your vision. What do you think? How CSOs could be involved in the processes that support implementation of the European Green Deal? We have already one very important answer on measuring progress on targets and pushing for accountability. Indeed, this is very important one. It's very important for CSOs to kind of track, develop different reports on implementation of and meeting of targets that are set by the EU Green Deal and provide government with these reports and kind of asking them to have more tangible results. Awareness raising is very important, as we see involvement of society, general society, in the implementation of Green Deal is very important. So without proper awareness and proper kind of knowledge and habits, because the whole lifestyle should be changed and more sustainable lifestyle should be introduced, and this couldn't be achieved without awareness raising, and the awareness raising should be promoted by CSOs, and their role in this process is very important. Anti-corruption analytics, different sorts, policy development. Indeed, I also agree that CSOs can not only kind of act as a watchdogs, but they also should be involved in the processes in a constructive way and provide input in policy development, especially providing views of most vulnerable communities while working on the development of different policy documents in climate change. This is very important. Advocacy, awareness raising, collaboration with the EU-based CSOs and experience sharing and lessons learned sharing. Absolutely. This sharing of experience and kind of best practices is very important, because we can use their kind of best practices and replicate them in our reality, but not kind of replicate, but to adapt them to our reality. So this experience sharing is very important. Thank you so much. This was very helpful and important. I guess we all agree that the involvement of CSOs in the processes are very important. In addition to all the issues that you have listed, there are a couple of ways of formal involvement in the processes, apart of those that we are already noted by you. As it was already mentioned, human action can change the course of the climate-related events, and involvement of civil society in the implementation of the Green Deal is very important to ensure that the process, policy documents, and initiatives that are developed as a result of the Green Deal, they are implemented in real life and they have impact on real people. You can make a difference by getting involved in the European Climate Pact, an initiative that helps communities to share and implement measures to combat climate change, or in the European Bauhaus, an initiative that is bringing a cultural and creative dimension to the European Green Deal. So let's discuss each of them separately, and later on, once we will share with you the presentation, you will have the links and you can explore in detail each possibility. The European Climate Pact is a platform to work and learn together to develop solutions and build networks to make kind of real changes. The pact is an EU-wide initiative that invites people, communities, and organizations to connect and share knowledge, learn about climate change, develop and implement and scale up solutions. It's an open and inclusive initiative. Will evolve and grow thanks to the creativity, the new needs and the new ideas of those who will becoming part of it. The climate crisis is real and affects all of us, so everyone's contribution and involvement is very important, because each can find solutions, and EU is taking action to fight climate change. But laws and policies won't be enough. Our everyday choices matters. So climate action is an opportunity for everyone to improve our lives, our economy, our society. The Climate Pact provides a space for people across the world with common interest to connect and collectively develop and implement climate solutions. Despite what size are they, big or small, they can share ideas and best practices and kind of replicate and multiply the impact. The pact will focus on spreading awareness and supporting action. So you can become a Climate Pact ambassador, so to inform and inspire and support climate policy and action in the communities and the networks you have connections. You can take climate friendly action and making a pledge. Each of you can commit to take different actions towards sustainable choices, and share these actions with others to inspire them to join. And there is link for this possibility also. You can later explore, or you can register an event and organize event relevant to the Climate Pact. This pact has an open mandate, and its scope will evolve based on the ideas and contributions of the people or organizations that will become part of it. And another possibility is the new European Bauhaus that supports a movement of sustainable communities, inclusive dialogue, and proposable activities. The role of partners is to help build and inspire communities, and at the same time they act as discussion panels and the key speakers for the initiatives. Any entity except for profit organizations and the public entities can become official part of this initiative. The call for partners is permanently open. For profit organizations or for the public authorities, they can instead apply as friends of the initiative. So in this way, they can also be part of this. Partner organizations with a significant outreach capacity, who are trusted members of the communities, and partners can help societies to create more sustainable, inclusive, urban or rural environments. They can acknowledge the diverse perspectives and expertise and fundamental to generate beautiful, inclusive experience. Partners commit to organize several types of activities. For example, they can discuss how diverse professions and disciplines can interpret and enrich the initiative. They can organize, for example, transdisciplinary meetings or conferences. They can identify or start projects or develop concepts that enact the new European Bauhaus principles and share them with the public. So many more activities are possible as long as they are concrete and contribute to achieving the objectives of this initiative. Should be noted that partners' commitments is not subject to financial support. And in the end, it's very important that in general, talking about climate change, spreading information about the new development, new opportunities in terms of climate change, and act as a role model for others by inspiring them to replicate a new, more green and sustainable lifestyle is very important, and this is exactly what CSOs can do in terms of supporting implementation of Green Deal and the principles that are elaborated there, and in this way support the meeting the targets that are outlined in the Green Deal. Actually, this was briefly what I wanted to share with you in terms of Green Deal. This is quite a comprehensive document, and I encourage each of you to look in the document itself, and many more ideas will come to you in terms of involving in the processes and supporting implementation and replication of those sustainable practices in our everyday work and lifestyle. Thank you.